I hope people had a nice Pesach break, and we'll pick up from where we left off. I think actually, apologize. I actually recall that last week's Shiur was actually post Pesach. So I hope everyone had a good week. Hope you also had a nice Pesach, but not related. We were in the middle of discussing people who honored Shabbos, and we're discussing how honoring the mitzvos is a way of showing honor and reverence to Hashem. And now we're going to be tying this into Yiras Shamayim. So we ended with how Rav Nachman used to do a certain preparation in honor of Shabbos. And he made, I guess, like a kal v'chomer. He said, if these two great rabbis would come, I would have a nice table set. Everything would look nice. Kal v'chomer for HaKadosh Baruch. And the Gemara said, "Davar zeh mar la'olam mihe adam arum b'yira l'das nispanin davar mitoch davar." A person should always be resourceful when it comes to Yiras Shamayim. You don't assume that you're getting any. You have to work for it. You have to do whatever you can to think about ways to grow in your Yiras Shamayim. L'chadesh hamtos, in order to find however many ways that you can, to whatever is possible, to give nachas ruach to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I believe that's where we ended last time. So it says laharas hayosam akirim godel v'memuso aleinu. Now we're discussing a concept of what's called like yiras haromimus. There's two types of yiras shamayim. There is yiras haonesh, the fear. Sometimes we perform mitzvos out of fear of punishment. And then there's Yiras Haromus. It's that recognizing the greatness, the exaltedness of Hashem and the mitzvos, to be in awe of them and to serve Hashem out of that level of Yira. It says to recognize the exaltedness of Hashem upon us. Asher al kain kol mashit yaches lo yiyeh nechbad aleinu kavod gadol. That we should to demonstrate that we want to do things to demonstrate that we recognize how great Hashem's loftiness is over us. Asher alkein kol ma'ashes yaches lo yeh nechbad aleinu kavod gadol. That anything that's associated with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that if something is held high by Hashem, like Shabbos, for example, the mitzvos, then we should certainly give honor to that. And since Hashem, in His great abundance, how great HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, in spite of the fact of how low we are, meaning comparing us to Hashem, meaning HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided, even though Hashem is so exalted and we're so low, look who we are, we're nothing. Hashem gave us the holy mitzvos. His holy words here is referring to as holy mitzvos. The pachlos b'chol kochim nechabdim v'nira haikar sher lahem etzleinu. That it's our job to honor these mitzvos as best as we can. This is what Hashem gave us. We are certainly unworthy of the Torah and the mitzvos, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose to bestow it upon us. So therefore, to show honor to what Hashem gave us, show honor to Hashem, we have to perform these mitzvos as best as possible. And what we're discussing here is to show honor to the mitzvos themselves. This is the true yira, yiras haromimus, that which is yiras haromimus. It says yiras haromimus. When it comes to having awe for Hashem and being enamored and recognizing the greatness of Hashem, that form of yira leads to ahava. I thought of a mashal I'll give you in a second, just to compare the other two. As we're going to see, as I'll write further, Masha Ein Kain, but that's not the case when it comes to Yiras HaOnesh, fear of punishment, serving Hashem because you're scared you're going to get burned in Gehenna. That the Ava of Hashem does not come from these things. And you're not going to, if you're serving Hashem because you're scared you're going to burn in Gehenna, that's not going to lead you to Avas Hashem. But if you serve Hashem out of the Yiras Haromos, out of the awe that you have for Hashem, that will bring you to greater Ahava. Just a mashal I thought of to explain this idea. It was just WrestleMania for any WWE fans. When it came to wrestling, WrestleMania, so imagine you have a person, let's say, who loves wrestling. He loves watching wrestling. And he has a favorite wrestler. And finally, he gets to meet this wrestler. So the person, imagine this person is, let's just say a teenager, okay? And a teenager goes up to this guy, and this guy is 6'7", 295 pounds, whatever, 300 pounds, 350 pounds, who knows, a huge guy. And he's seeing his idol, not in a Avodah Zarah way, right? But he's seeing the person he's looked up to, person he loves watching, and the biggest celebrity. And this person is struck with two things. One, the awe, like the Yiras Haromimus, the exaltedness of this person. Wow, right? He's speechless in front of him. The other thing is also a certain sense of ownership. Wow, this person could crush me. This person could pile drive me into the ground, right? So what leads a person to the greater Ahava is the exaltedness. Wow, look at this. This is the person I've idolized my whole life. I'm getting to meet him. It's so exciting, right? That leads to a greater Ahava, as we could now, hopefully we could understand. Now he says, "V'nafzor le'inyan haShabbos." Now let's go back to Shabbos for a second. We're gonna discuss Shabbos a drop more. Hine Amru. It says in Gemara Shabbos, Rav Anan levesh gunda. Rav Anan would wear a certain coat called a gunda. I tried to look up a gunda. I was unsuccessful in trying to find what this coat was, but a certain type of coat. The Hainishai lovesh beged shachor for Erev Shabbos. Not only that, but on Erev Shabbos he would wear a dark, let's say, a black coat. And this gunda was the opposite. I don't know if it was literally white, but it looked very different. And Hidavka wore this on Erev Shabbos, meaning this black coat on Erev Shabbos, to contrast it so that you see, look at how the kavod he's giving to Shabbos by wearing this special gunda. Nimtza, we find so he says it's not only where you honor something by being directly associated with that mitzvah, but you could actually refrain from something and prior, let's say, and that will show greater honor to the mitzvah itself. I have to give an example here. Let's say I know of someone, I don't know if he still does this, let's assume he does, who didn't eat meat during the week so that he could honor Shabbos greater by eating meat on Shabbos, right? So by refraining from something during the week, you are showing greater kavod to Shabbos. So sometimes a person could act differently for certain mitzvahs, which will enhance his mitzvah, or the kavod he's giving to a mitzvah, acting a certain way. It says, Gamhu Miklal mitzvah, that too is included in the mitzvah of honoring the Shabbos. Okay. V'chein asur lekbo suda b'erev Shabbos nekavod Shabbos v'chein kol kayote bazeh. And he says the Chazal also forbade having, similarly, they forbade having a suit on Erev Shabbos, right? Because you don't want to come into Shabbos, we're already full. You have to, so there are certain times where we're acting in a manner of something that's in contrast to the mitzvah you're about to perform is going to be a greater cover for the mitzvah. So on Erev Shabbos, behaving in a certain way is greater kavod for Shabbos by wearing clothes are not so nice and by not having a big meal, right? And so that shows your greater sense of kavod for Shabbos. Now, for the rest of the evening, we're going to discuss the kavod of Torah. And he says, and included in a person's fear of Hashem and the Yiras Haromimus, the exaltedness of Hashem, a person has to honor the Torah and those who learn the Torah, the great Talmidei Chachamim. And we're taught explicitly in Perkei Avos, Parak Dal Mishnah Vav, Kol HaMachabes HaTorah Gufo Mechubad Al Brios. You honor the Torah, you will in turn be honored. You'll be given honor whether it's directly because of that or in general, Hashem's going to make it so that you should honor things that merit Hashem. Hashem's going to make sure that you receive honor in this world. Yamar Chazal and Gemara and Sanhedrin on Kuf Beis on the Beis. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Yochanan wondered the following question: why was Achav worthy of being the king of Israel for 22 years? Achav was an extremely wicked king who served Avodah Zarah. So why did Hashem make it so that he's able to reign for a relatively long period? He says, because he honored the Torah, showed cover for the Torah that was written with the 22 letters of the Aleph base. Shenemar, as it says in Melachim Aleph Parakaf, just to explain a little bit of the story that's elaborated here in my Sefer. Basically, he was surrounded by Aram, the nation of Aram. There was a siege, and he had to surrender. And Melech Aram said, basically, give me your women, give me your children, give me your wealth. And he says, okay, I surrender. I'll give you those things. So the message came back to Achav. Says he's going to take all those things and what's precious in your eyes. And it's learned out that when he said what's precious in your eyes, that's referring to the Sifrei Torah. He's going to take the Sifrei Torah. So Achav sent the message back saying, you could take those first things. You could take the women, the children, the money. He says, but you can't take the Sifrei Torah. You can't take the Sifrei Torah. And just showing his, Mesiras Nefesh and his affection, even though he wasn't over to Zara. But that act that he did, that is what merited him towards being a king for many years. Damar Chazal saying, Brachos and Yotchet Amud Aleph, Haya Holich Mimakom Lemakom. When you're traveling, if a person's traveling from place to place, and you're taking a Sefer Torah with you. Lo yanichenu b'sak yanichenu al chamor v'yirkav. Don't put it in like a bag and then put it on the bottom of the donkey and you riding on top of the donkey. Allah manicha b'chaykav v'chulei. Hold it near your chest. You should hold on to it. The asru od, and it says further in separately related to similar laws related to the cover we show for a Torah in Moed Katan and Daf Kaf Hem and Aleph. Leishiv alamita should say for Torah. It's asur od. Leishiv alamita should say for Torah. Asur to sit on the bed that a Torah is on. Just to share a brief Maisa, probably somewhere around 4 years ago, right before I was married. So I was on the school Shabbaton, and we bring a Sefer Torah to lean on Shabbos on the Shabbaton. And so where are you going to keep the Sefer Torah? So I was single at the time, and I had 2 beds in my room, and I don't remember if they asked for volunteers or I think maybe they came up to me and they said, would you keep the Torah in your room? You have an empty bed there. I said, sure. It was a very strange experience. Imagine changing into your pajamas with like Mamash's Sefer Torah right there. It's not like even like there's an aron. Like there's one thing, and it would still be strange if there was like an aron in the room. It's there, but it's like Mamash there. Certainly okay. It was covered. I think I remember house over it, or it was in a bag, but like Mamash's Sefer Torah on the bed. I remember also I was like petrified that like it would fall off the bed. And they have this huge. I guess it was, I don't know if they're queen or king size beds. I think it's a queen size bed. And I like Mamash tried to put it like smack in the middle. It could be like 4 feet of room this way, 4 feet of room this way, 3 feet of room this way. Like there's no way it was falling off. And I was like so scared. Maybe something will happen. I don't know. It was a strange thing to sleep the room to the Sefer Torah next to you. So here the halacha is that it's on the books. The din is that I couldn't sit on that bed. But certainly I was not planning on sitting on that bed next to the Sefer Torah. You can't throw Kisvei HaKodesh. You have to treat them properly, treat them respectfully. The Asru and the Gemara Megillah comes on and Rav says it's also there's a hierarchy when it comes to text. Chumash has to be placed on top of a Navi. Navi has to be placed on top of Ktuvim, right? And that's why you don't have Tanachs that are organized Tuvim, Nevi'im, Torah, right? You have to have Torah first in that way. And certainly when you have separate Svarim, I think probably every time I come back to my house, if we have like the cleaning lady over, so there'll be random svarim on top of different svarim. So we'll put like the Mesilat Yesharim on top of the Chumash. I'll come home, I'll see that, and I'll reverse the order. It's a classic thing that could happen. It says, "Hein." Let me see right here. So, "Hein ile dvarim she'asru chachameinu zachrona lebracha v'chol adas Yisrael." So he says, these are the things that Chachamim prohibited. All bnei Yisrael. The Chassid yesh loma me'ela hosef aleim kahin v'chachena lichvod shem Hashem Elokav. So he says that's the din. But even though that's just the din, a Chassid, right? We're learning about Chassidus. This whole parak, been learning this parak for a million years now, is all about Chassidus. So a Chassid is someone who should go above and beyond. That's the minimum you could do. Here in the footnote, it discusses certain examples that are considered lifnim mishur sadin, alpi Chassidus. One is make sure to store svarim neatly. Another is to kiss them when they fall on the ground. It's not a din, you have to kiss it when it falls on the ground. Those are some things. So it says here, I saw from the stipler, that whenever the stipler took out a sefer, let's say he wants to look up the ritva, and he took out a ritva and he realized, oh my God, it's the wrong masechta, I need a different ritva. He wouldn't take out a sefer and put it back right away, even if it was the wrong sefer. He would make sure to learn something from it. To show us our kavod to the sefer. And Rabbi Cheskel Sarna, even when he was old and it was difficult for him to walk, if he ever saw a sefer, svarim that were in his yeshiva that were not placed properly, or svarim that were like scattered on the table, he would make sure to get up and organize it properly. There's so many things that a person could do. It says that so included in this certain dinim about when you're able to and how you're able to learn Torah, right? If a person is in the bathroom, you're not even allowed to think Torah. How could a person learn Torah in a place like that? And a person, even though you're allowed to happen to be a midin, you're allowed to learn Torah when your hands are unclean. Sorry, you're allowed to think Torah when your hands are unclean. If your hands are not clean, you're not allowed to physically learn Torah. Therefore, if a person touches a place on their body that's normally covered, so that's one example. Or the example, you go to the bathroom, right? So you have to wash your hands. Obviously, for sure, you have to wash your hands also. But you can learn Torah if you accidentally touch yourself somewhere. Bar Harbu Chazal has here al Zeb and Komos Rabin. Chazal, we're careful to mention this. These warnings in many places. But inyan lamdei Torah, and regarding, so that's what we said up until now, is regarding the svarim themselves, regarding the Torah itself. What about regarding Talmidei Chachamim? Regarding Talmidei Chachamim, lamdei Torah hine mikrav pasuk nesivat akum v'adat arta b'nei zaken in Sefer Vayikra in next week's parsha. Next week we have am I blanking? Kedoshim, in Parshas Kedoshim. So it says that you have to stand up for the elderly and stand up for a Talmid Chacham. Zaken is referring to a Zeshakana Chacham, I believe is what the Gemara says. Someone who requires wisdom. It doesn't even have to be an old person. You have a 30-year-old Talmid Chacham, you stand up for them. As much as a person's able to honor them, that's what they should do. It's brought here in the footnote story. Oh, sorry, it's not actually. I mean, there is a story here. Actually, going to say the story in the text, but a separate story that's brought in the footnote is Rav Eli Kian in 1964. He was invited to go to the Knessia Gedola of Agudas Yisrael. Everyone, the big Talmidei Chacham from around the world were gathering in Yerushalayim, 1964, and he traveled the lengthy journey from Kfar Hasidim to Yerushalayim. He said that typically he wouldn't do such a thing. So why'd he go? He says he wanted to go to see Rav Moshe Feinstein and make a bracha on him. There's a bracha for seeing a Talmid Chacham. It's not something, a bracha that we say lightly b'shem malchus. Most of us don't typically recite this. He felt to see the Gadol Ador, the incredible Gadol Ador of Moshe Feinstein, to make this bracha. He wanted Dafka travel to see Rav Moshe, to be able to make this bracha, to show honor for a Talmid Chacham. It says, Kvar Amru Chazal. Gemara says in Suvos, here it's funny. Here it says on the screen, Suvos Kuf Gemal, it says Makos Kaf Dal Damraf. Obviously, it appears in both places. The Esir Hashem Yechabed, that we should honor those who fear Hashem. And so Gemara says, Zeh Yehoshua Melech Yehuda. Shkevan Shaya Roa Talmid Chacham. This is the King Yehoshaphat, King Yehuda. Whenever he saw Talmid Chacham, Haya Omen Mikiso, he would stand up from his throne. He would embrace him. He would kiss him. Rabbi, Mori, my master, my teacher. Rabbi Zera, this is a story I thought it was in my phone, but it was in the text itself. Rabbi Zera, Shaya Chalash Limudo. Rabbi Zera is very weak from his learning. I'm not sure if this is referring to when it became too difficult in his life to sit and strenuously learn, or if on a daily basis, once he got to a point when it was hard, he needed a break, and then he did this. I'm not sure which one it's referring to. Either way, when Rabbi Zera was weak from learning, he would go and seat himself by the entrance of the Beis Midrash, in order to fulfill the mitzvah of standing up before the Talmid Chacham. Brought here that this is not obviously something that's obligatory in the sense of seeking out the ability to stand up for a Talmid Chacham. Because Allah, you have to stand up for a Talmid Chacham when you see them, when they walk by you, right? But here he dafka, is like put himself in a situation to be able to fulfill this. Call the Ela Dvarim Shekfar Roam Anachnu Hayos Habore, that all these things are things that we see that Hashem clearly desires. That Hashem wants. Hashem revealed this to us. The Kevan Shekain. And therefore, if there's someone who wants to give pleasure to Hashem, he's certainly gonna try to embark on this path to do these things, to implement these strategies in order to do that which is proper in the ways of Hashem. So similar to we discussed honoring, apologize for that. We discussed honoring the Torah itself. We discussed honoring the Talmidei Chachamim, and now it says we are. Apologize. This. Okay. Here we are. I apologize for that delay. Kibud Beis HaKnesses, Beis Midrash, Ein Dai Shelo Yinhag Behem Kas Rosh. A person shouldn't act like frivolously. A person shouldn't act just not thinking in an inappropriate way. A person should be very cognizant of where they are and act in an appropriate manner. That person should act in a way of kavod, in a way of reverence, of yira, when it comes to the way they're going to perform every action that they do when they're inside a shul or beis medrash. And anything that they wouldn't do in the palace of the natural king, certainly they shouldn't do in a beis medrash. And there are times in my life where I've been better at that. Sometimes it's certainly more difficult in school. But certainly to be able to have certainly only appropriate conversations that are ready for that, and not speak in a certain way, or ideally even about certain things when you're in there, and to recognize that you're in a presence of Shechina, right? So even though the Gemara discusses, right, even when the base Medrash was destroyed, and we were in Galus, the Shechina, where's the Shechina in the Galus? Dal Damas Shel Halacha, right, referring to the Makomos HaTorah. That's where Akash Baruch Hu resides. Also referred to as a Mikdash Ma'at, right? Like our miniature base Hamikdash. That's the basic Knesset. That's the Knesios that we have. It's important to be cognizant of that. We're gonna stop here, and the next week we're going to be discussing Avas Hashem and the love of Akash Baruch Hu.